Anyway, again, I'm Bonnie, and on behalf of Carolina, Christine, Lori, and Leanne. Okay, we would like to thank you all for joining us tonight. We ask and bless in spirit of universal love and light to provide us tonight with a positive, uplifting, and enjoyable experience for all. May all information received be of benefit for all, living and in spirit. And now, Carolina is going to swing the censer and go through the room.
And we also have a little chant. This
Yes.
goes back to the ancient Celtic days when they did this as a ritual to celebrate the harvest time. And they do this in the churches still. And there's a little ditty we're going to say. I think they said that back in the day. So make sure I don't. Okay. And it goes like this. So if you want to join in, swing the censer, ring the bell, invite the spirits, they will tell. So as we go around, we're going to circle and bless. So you can join in. Swing the censer, ring the bell, invite the spirits, they will tell. Swing the censer, ring the bell, invite the spirits, they will tell. Swing the censers, ring the bell, invite the spirits, they will tell. Swing the censers, ring the bell, invite the spirits, they will tell. Swing the censers, ring the bell, invite the spirits, they will tell. Swing the censers, ring the bell, invite the spirits, they will tell. Swing the censers, ring the bell, invite the spirits, they will tell. Swing the censers, ring the bell, invite the spirits, they will tell. Swing the censers, ring the bell, invite the spirits, they will tell. Swing the censer, ring the bell, invite the spirits, they will tell. Swing the censers, ring the bell, invite the spirits, they will tell. Swing the censers, ring the bell, invite the spirits, they will tell. Swing the censers, ring the bell, invite the spirits, they will tell. We are now lighting the altar candle for spirit. And I bring in light and air from the east. Oops, I moved it here. To bring in that light and air and the breath of life. She do it again? Oh, no. May we breathe in the breath of life.
We bring in light and fire from the south to illuminate our temple and bring us warmth.
We bring in from the west light and water to illuminate our temple and wash it clean.
Here we bring light. Oh dear. It's not working. This tree over there.
The backup.
Here we bring light and earth to the north, that we may bring strength and illuminate. Oh my goodness.
Use a tile block on it.
Can't get it. Push the...
Thank you. I know I have to use 2 hands to do it.
Thank you very much.
And now we've called in the directions, and this goes back to many, many centuries ago of calling in the directions and lighting the light, and this was part of an ancient Celtic ritual and still used today.
First of all, we're going to give, these wonderful ladies are going to give a small history of the seance and on Halloween, and they're going to address different traditions.
And I'm going to start with, since we're in the Halloween week, it's coming very closely to us, and this goes back to All Hallows Eve. Probably a lot of people know that. And in ancient Celtic lore, it was known as Samhain or Solwen, depending on which part of the country you came from. And there's been a lot of different ideas on a pentacle, and they used to have the pentacles in the past for protection. And it represents what we were doing with calling the four quarters is earth, air, wind, and fire. And the fifth star is spirit. So it was a natural way to appreciate nature and appreciate the Creator, whoever you happen to believe in. But what I'm going to go back to is the early days in Celtic in Great Britain, in England and Ireland, where a lot of the legends came from. And back in the 5th century Ireland, they actually used turnips, because turnips were quite prominent in there, and of course they're very nutritious, so it was a mainstay. And they used to carve them out long before the pumpkin. When people did immigrate to the Americas, pumpkins were more plentiful, and that was a little easier to carve than turnips. If anybody's peeled a turnip, you probably know what I mean. So it can be a little tricky. But this is a time when the veil is the thinnest between the living and the dead. And this is why we thought it might be a good time to invoke a seance, which we will be doing right after our little talks about the seance. And just before I talk on, there's some things that we're going to talk about too, about grounding yourself, and that's what we were doing with the selenite. It clears and cleanses, and it detaches any entities, and it doesn't, nothing can attach to you after that. So, but it is a good idea to maybe do something afterwards too, and we'll go into more detail about that. But this was a time of year, like it is now, where there's the harvest, and a time of plenty, because people worked the land in that day, and this was a time when they could appreciate a harvest feast. So they were gathering like we are tonight to kind of come together and enjoy a feast, enjoy stories, and there was lots of yarns to spin back in the day. In fact, there was one about Jack, and that's where Jack O'Lantern came from. He was an Irish guy. He was a drunken trickster, actually, and he wasn't very well liked by the townspeople, because he was always playing tricks on people, and he was always getting drunk, and he never paid anybody back. And he tricked the devil into climbing up a tree. And so the devil was up the tree, and he said, well, I'll let you come down. See, what Jack had did, he carved a cross at the bottom of the tree, so the devil couldn't come down, so he would stay up there for eternity. So Jack said, I'll cover it up if you promise not to tempt me anymore, because Jack, remember, he was tempted very easily for everything. So the devil agreed, and he let him down. Well, Jack eventually died, and neither heaven would not let him in because of what he did. And the devil, of course, was tricked, so he didn't let him in either. So they said, okay, Jack O'Lantern, here's your lantern. And they gave him an ember from a fire and a turnip, and they said, this is what you're going to do. You're going to walk the earth and carry this, and for eternity, remember what you've done. So if you see these pumpkins, this is kind of in memory of Jack and to scare away the evil. And that's probably what a lot of them were doing back in the day, because when they did have their harvest, a lot of the village people extinguished the fires in their cottages, because they didn't want to make it too comfortable for the spirits, or some of the disembodied spirits that wanted to possess a live body. And there was a lot of belief in that, so they said, well, whatever we can do to keep them away. So they also put on ghoulish masks this would allow them, if they ran into a spirit, it's just like if someone came into your house and you had on the mask of Freddy or something, and you did that to them, I think they'd probably go out the back door and not bother breaking in your house. But this is what they did, and to scare them away. And I guess it made them feel better, and who knows? It would probably work, and that's why candles were also lit in the houses. It was to bring goodwill. And there was also a custom, has anybody heard of a Solon? Solon? There used to be a song by Peter, Paul, and Mary back in the 60s, but it was called the Solon. And they went around to houses and asked for soul cakes. If I was a good singer, I would sing it. Probably Lori can sing this one, but the soul cakes were, if you ate a soul cake, which is really currant and bread, it's very easy to make. It's a tradition to have this at this time of year. And if they collected those, that would mean it gained them entrance into heaven and kept the negative away. So there was this big ritual. And that's where Halloween, the trick-or-treating, came from a Solon around this time, because in Celtic lore, October 31st is actually the end of the summer, and the beginning, November 1st, All Saints' Day, is the beginning of the new year. And a lot of times, things are closing, the leaves are falling, so it's kind of like the end, and then the beginning of another time. So this was carried on, and if people didn't give them a piece of soul cake, then they might overturn the roundhouse or, do kind of things that still go on today. So the tradition continues, whether we want it or not. Only it's become a little bit more organized these days. But so that's part of the history. And also the moon we're in now is called the blood moon. It's called this because of animals at that time when they prepared them for winter so they could have food. A lot of the blood would seep into the grain, and they would call this haggis. There were some other mixtures they made. Has anybody heard of haggis? They have a haggis feast with the Robbie Burns. And so this was a rough version of haggis that they would eat throughout the season. And also it was an offering to the spirits because they wanted to keep them happy over the season too. There was always offerings for the spirits, because you don't want to have Jack come back or some of the others, but also to the fairies, the little people. There was a great belief in them, and I think they're still around. I think they're around as long as you want them to be. And of course there was apple bobbing. We're not going to do that tonight. I would like to, but because of the Ministry of Health, we can't do that. You would have to sign a waiver anyway, and I don't want to be sued. So we're not going to do apple bobbing, but later we're going to have a little break after our first round of seance. We have a lovely basket of apples, and each one of them has, what's a little bag of...
There's a little bag, and they have a chocolate bar, and some of them have a little added extra.
Okay, there's a little added extra because we have a lot of gift certificates to give away and certain prizes, so it's all in that basket. So, but this goes back to apple bobbing, and they did this for fun, and clean fun, where they would bob for apples, and there would be things that they would do with them, such as, here's an old one for anybody that's looking for a lover, male or female. You get your apple. You can do that tonight if you want, or probably the 31st, and you peel it non-stop so it swirls around until you've got kind of, like a swirly little thing here, until it drops right off. So you got your swirly apple peel. You throw it over your left shoulder, and then you look around and see, oh, that's initial S. Well, maybe Steve is coming back.